sound. Appreciate your 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 sound needed renovation.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube. Sorry, got mixed up with my other intros. Back with another episode of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games podcast. This is episode number 327 for the 25th of February, 2024. Here with me, as always, I have my stalwart companion in crime, Mr. Tao Master. How you doing, Tao?
I'm doing well. It's good to be back. It's off for a couple weeks there.
Alrighty, without much further ado, let's get to it. So, Tao, you are the only one of us who has been playing something new that's reportable. I've dabbled in a couple of things that were new, but not meaty enough to warrant any talking time in segment one. So you, sir, have the ball. And why don't you start us off with your first game, which you have been playing in an alternate reality, which is quite often what I say people on Twitter and social media are living in. But I think you've actually been having more gaming return on investment for your time.
And more fun, I would like to say. Yeah, so I actually jumped back into Legendary Tales, and this is actually previous couple weeks. I didn't get to play too much of it this past week, but I figured since I was out and hadn't played it for a while, I jumped back into it on the Quest 3. Well, Quest 3, but using PC Link through my computer because I bought through Steam. And the reason I jumped back into it was it finally came out of early access. So 1.0, and actually it's 1 point something now because they've done a couple updates in the last couple weeks. They've upgraded to and released. So it's full release. So before it's kind of just like you're just going through kind of like endless dungeons in the early access. And they've kind of retooled how the world actually plays out now. So it's kind of open worldish a little bit. You kind of follow these different paths here and there in the world, and then you can go into a dungeon if you want, or there's just like stuff to do out in the world. So it's actually kind of nice. And this was kind of I guess I want to say simulated or like real life, like sword fighting. So you got, like swords and shields and bows and arrows and all kinds of different melee weapons like maces and, all these other kind of things, staves and some of the other weapons. I don't know what they're actually called, but so you can use these kind of weapons as you're going through the world and defeating different enemies. And kind of before in the early access, it was basically just skeletons and like these little, basically look like goblins that would you shoot fight, but they have like a whole bunch of other enemies now finally, because it was kind of getting boring just fighting skeletons and goblins all the time before. But and then they have like I think about maybe a year after release, maybe a year and a half, or early access, they had put in a kind of a skill tree, but they flushed it out a lot more. So you got the skill tree, and then you got other abilities that you can put your points into as you progress and level up. You get points, and you put them into health and defense and stuff like that. But then you have all these different trees for like archer and melee and all this other kind of stuff and defense and stuff. So it's actually kind of nice now that they've kind of flushed all that out. And for a while there, I didn't think this was going to come out of early access because it had been a long time and they kept delaying it. Obviously during COVID, obviously everything got delayed, but then they got delayed afterwards. They tried to go to Unreal 5 and that didn't work out. So then they had to put everything back to Unreal 4, and that kind of took, longer too to get everything going, but they finally got it out, and I've been enjoying it with a couple of friends of mine, my one usual friend that I play stuff with. So we've been playing and having a good time at it. And there's crafting in it now, which didn't have any kind of crafting before. So you can make your own weapons if you want, which I'm still not sure if that's even I even really you even have to really do that, because they seem to find some pretty decent stuff along the way. So enemies drop stuff, and you can find stuff in barrels, and there's all the kinds. There's mini bosses and bosses and stuff like that. So they usually drop pretty decent stuff. So I'm still even trying to figure out if that's even worth doing, or if there's some other kind of benefit of making your own weapon. Maybe you could sell it or something. So I still have to get through that, so that part of it a little bit more and flesh it out. But yeah, having a good time on Legendary Tales. So I do recommend that one if you guys have a VR headset out there.
Now, is it available in anything other than the Meta store?
It is actually, it's not even on the Meta store. It's just on Steam. I got it off of Steam, so I'm using the PC link. But it did release on PlayStation 2 VR, which I believe was on the last direct they had. It was in their little, I don't know if it was Scissor Reel, but I think it was like one of the games they had said that was coming out on PC VR too. So it's also on that.
Yeah, it was definitely in the showcase. I didn't think that it had released yet, but quite honestly, I don't pay super close attention to the VR games that are coming to PlayStation, because I don't have a PSVR 2.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Your second game was we have new systems and various members have new systems, so I didn't recognize the acronym, but I guess you've also looks like you've been getting a handful of mobile gaming in. Let's start with the Valve product first. What you've been playing on the Steam Deck?
Yeah, that was Steam Deck. Yeah, I didn't want to put just Steam Deck in there because it looked kind of weird. So I was like, I'll just put in initials. But yeah, so Wrestling Empire, which is a game that kind of came out of nowhere for me. I'd seen a few people like on different Discords that I'm on playing it, and I don't know. I was like, it looks kind of janky, and just the graphics itself look like slightly better, maybe Nintendo 64 graphics.
Is this a free to play game?
No, this is not. It's full. I forgot how much it was. I think it was only like $30 or something like that. It's not super expensive. So it wasn't, once I started looking into it, I was like, oh, okay, that's not too bad. And I think it might even been on sale. It was like 27 something, I think, at the time when I got it. But when I was reading through the reviews and stuff, a lot of people are saying yeah, this is kind of a throwback to, the old N64 game, the wrestling games, NWO versus WCW and WrestleMania 2000, those type of games. Those old, was it like THQ, I believe back in the day, or maybe they became THQ eventually, but the company. But so like I said, graphically, it's slightly better than N64, like high res, and they're not as jaggy. The characters not as jaggy and stuff. But gameplay wise, it's pretty much the same. You got your grapple, just like a grapple. A punch, and then kind of like a throw button, throw them into the turnbuckle or into the ropes and stuff like that. And that's pretty much it, and a counter button. So it's nothing overly complicated like some of the wrestling games are nowadays, of some of the Raw and SmackDown ones. It's just you got to use every button, just like in Madden, just to do anything anymore. But so that was another thing that I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. It's a little simpler. So I pulled the trigger on it, and yeah, the gameplay is pretty much like that, and the graphically, but they kind of throw in a storyline almost, it's kind of different each time. There are different federations that you can go in, and they're basically all the old wrestling federations like WWE and NWA and all these other old ones, and kind of the newer ones that are not out around now, like AEW, I think is the other one, the current one right now. That's kind of a competition for WWE, but so you have. So you have the wrestlers too from those federations and stuff, but they changed the names obviously because they don't have licenses. The license for Diesel and Ric Flair and Jericho, they're slightly off, or turned around or something. There's something off obviously about the name, but it looks just like the character. You can tell who it is. So so it's kind of funny in that direction, in that way. And then you can actually go in there and actually edit people too. Excuse me. You can actually edit any person in there, any character in there, and edit their name, edit their stats, and just do anything like that. So when I initially, so far I've only I picked what basically was the Sting model from WCW, and I kind of just tweaked his stats and stuff. So I'm just kind of using him right now, and then you know when you put these stats in, like say you put your age in, like I put in, I think he was like in his 40s or something, somewhere close to my age. You know, that comes along in the storyline, like they're saying, "Oh, you know, you're a 40-year-old, you're has been, you shouldn't even be in this industry anymore." So you get those kind of dialogues, that kind of dialogue in the game. So it's kind of funny. So and then, but it's kind of open worldish, like they drop you in this like little town where there's like the ring or the venue that you wrestle in. There's a hotel, so that's where you go to sleep so you can get your health back and stuff like that. There's a bar, there's a barber shop, but it's all fairly small, so you can get to it fairly quickly. So it's kind of cool. You can kind of go back and forth and roam around if you want. But when you do that, someone can come in and attack you like before your match, and then you're going to go into a match with low health or low stamina or whatnot. So you kind of got to be careful when you're doing stuff like that. Or you can just go, in between the screens, you can just go right to your match and just do your matches. So it's kind of cool. They kind of have that back and forth, and you can kind of screw around sometimes. And there's like some wacky matches they have in there. Obviously you have your ladders and tables and chairs and those kind of matches. But there's like a Shark Tank one where basically the whole arena was in underwater. Well, not underwater, but it was in the water, basically up to the right before the top of the mat of the wrestling ring. So you get thrown out, and you're just swimming in water. Basically, I didn't see actually sharks. I thought there was supposed to be some from what I saw before, but I don't know. Maybe they just didn't put it in there for that time. There's another one where it's like a dynamite match, like literally you're throwing dynamite at people and exploding them and stuff. So it's just they throw some weird stuff in there. But I'm really enjoying this game. It's really fun and just kind of funny, just because some of the dialogue that comes up. So that's another one I've been playing. That one exclusively on the Steam Deck right now. I haven't tried that on my PC yet, so I'll probably just leave it on Steam Deck to just kind of mess around when I'm doing my commutes and stuff to work and whatnot. But it's a fun game though. It's if you like any kind of wrestling, the old wrestling games like that, and just kind of goofiness of like kind of the humor they bring into it. So it's kind of cool.
Well, being someone who's currently binging the Ruthless Aggression era of the WWE on Peacock because somebody informed me that all of the past seasons, like 23 seasons or whatever, like 30 something ridiculous of WWE Raw and SmackDown are on Peacock. I promptly went and reactivated my account. That's what I've been going through. So the multiple things you just said, particularly the part of the bar, because the episode I just watched was like Stone Cold Steve Austin gets benched by Ric Flair. And then he goes to the bar because he's not wrestling that night. And there he gets attacked by Eddie Guerrero. So what you just said sounded very, very true to the things that I'm currently rewatching and binging. But so you've been playing another handheld game on another system, and it looks like you've been getting some family time in with that one as well.
Yeah, that's what I've been playing on the Switch with my wife, actually, just last night. So it's the Suika Game, so it's otherwise known as the fruit game or watermelon game. It's that kind of like mashing fruits kind of a game where there's like fruit dropping down from the top of the screen, and as you collect the same type of each one, it kind of like makes the next level up. So like there's two cherries, that makes a strawberry, and then a strawberry makes a grape, and they have their own kind of like evolution of fruit. And I'm sure people have seen it. Like maybe they not know the name, but they've probably seen it like on like social media and stuff like that, or streamers and stuff. They've been playing the heck out of it and became popular, I think, because of that, actually, because of streaming. But my wife kind of plays kind of an offshoot on her phone. She's an Android phone, so I was looking and I was like, I don't see this game on here. So I guess it's only like an iOS and PC game, I believe, and then now Switch, or maybe just Switch and PC or something like that. I know it was like something. There's only like 2 of them available. But then during the last direct that they just had, Nintendo, the partner direct, they had mentioned that they were adding multiplayer, which I guess they didn't have before. So I was like, oh, that might be kind of something that we can jump into and play together. So I had bought it over the weekend, and we had been playing that. And they have 3 different modes. Just the original mode where you just kind of you'll both keep playing until you reach the top of the screen, and then whoever has like the most points wins at the end of once you both get out of the game. There's a time attack mode where you have 5 minutes, and you just try to get as many points as you can by the end of the 5 minutes. And then as the time goes down, like the fruit will just start, like you can just move the little cursor around and drop the fruit wherever you want normally, but actually as the time goes on, if you don't get it in a certain amount, like it was like 5 seconds or something, or 10 seconds, I think, at first, and then it kind of counts down as the time goes on. It'll just start dropping it for you, so you kind of have to do that really quick. And then the other one was an attack mode, where basically as you're not leveling up, but as you're getting the fruits, the collecting the fruit and matching them up, you get a chance to drop a fruit on their end. So kind of like attack modes and like Tetris and stuff. Like as soon as you get a match, it throws it down, which you can actually control when you can throw it down on their side. So it's kind of cool too. It's kind of a different mode. And then it looks like they had like you can kind of like page over. So, but you can't right now. There's only those 3 modes. So it looks like maybe they'll put more modes in eventually. So that'd be kind of cool. So it was kind of goofy fun game that I got into playing with her. So I've played it a couple times by myself, just kind of get into it. So you get kind of addicted and trying to. I think the ultimate goal, which I believe, is to make a watermelon. I think that's the ultimate goal. So none of us have done that yet. So, or either of us, I should say. And then, so I think my son wants to kind of jump into it because he was talking smack, trying to say he can beat us. So he'll jump in, I'm sure, at one point, so we can all kind of play together. But you can only play, 1-on-1 right now. So we'll do some kind of tournament mode or something eventually. But yeah, just having some fun with that on the Switch.
So any idea, or has there been any way to tell whether or not this is a full-blown console game that was brought to the Switch, or is this a mobile game?
I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up because I thought initially it was just a mobile game, but I don't know. When I was looking at it the other day, and I can't remember now exactly, but it looked like it was only like on Switch and I think PC or something. So, or maybe it was iOS, but I know it's not on Android, like the actual official game. This is like the original one. So, they haven't ported it to at least on Android, at least not yet. So we'll have to see.
And I may have missed it in your brief out. Are you and your wife playing together on the same Switch, or does she have her own, or does she have like a Switch Lite, or is this couch co-op, or?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. This is just couch co-op right now. They actually did mention during the Direct that they are looking to put in the online multiplayer eventually. So we're just one Switch, just playing on TV. So big screen.
All right, very cool. Well, let's go ahead and proceed on to segment 2 in our news rundown. So the first story up, Call of Duty SBMM completely broken among other errors. This story over on Twinfinite by Christina Ibanez, and I quote, "Today the Call of Duty network has been a little typo in there. Today, the Call of Duty network has been faced by some severe outages and errors, to say the least, from the Minnow-Meyer to Hawthorne error. It doesn't seem like the system is letting up. COD players are definitely paying the price. One in particular is the issue with Modern Warfare 3's SBMM, where the standard matchmaking has changed its tune. Since the game's release, this mechanic has received mixed reviews, and some even believe it has worsened. However, with the latest development, it is now completely broken. Interestingly, players' reaction may surprise you." So, if you are a Call of Duty regular, you may know I ran into this myself. I was falling asleep in my chair Thursday night down here in the game room, and as usual, I am very committed to getting in my gaming time that I do have scheduled during the week. So I was planning on doing some makeup time, so I got up early Friday morning and was planning on getting in like an hour of matches. And I awakened to a Call of Duty system that was just way off the rails. I was getting into the game, but my profile icon up in the upper right-hand corner was like doing this weird kind of wigging out dance of icons. And I was loading it as level 1. And I didn't even go into my weapons loadout, but it looked like my weapons had like no attachments or any unlocks. And so I never tried playing the game because I was unwilling to go in without all my stuff. But there were major problems, a major outage Friday morning. It really started kind of being, I think Activision kind of finally capitulated to it. That's what was going on about like 10 o'clock or so. And I had been trying to get on since like 7 a.m. So it had been going on for, a number of hours. They started kind of restoring systems by around 11. And by the way, when they admitted it, they had apparently been working on it for a while as well. But of course, if you go to the Activision like support Twitter account or the Activision website, where supposedly the status of the Activision of the Call of Duty network is supposed to be posted, there was nothing there about the systems being down. So things started to get restored about 11 o'clock. I of course just didn't try to get back on. Then I wound up. I can't remember exactly what time, but at some time, I guess that evening, I finally got on. I wound up never being able to really make up my time because the network was down. Interestingly, I spent some time playing a different game that night, which I don't know if I've actually put it in the rundown or the agenda, but I do need to talk about it a little bit. But I finally jumped on at about like 9 o'clock, but apparently for people who were trying to get on before then, while systems were restored and you were able to get into matches, what was not up was skill-based matchmaking. So again, this is the thing that in Call of Duty and a lot of other first-person shooter games that are out now, it's a thing that prevents what I call seal clubbing. And so, people who are OP can't go into matches and then run into a bunch of like non-skilled players and then rack up a high KD and lots of stats. And for whatever reason, a lot of them like feel impinged or insulted by this. I guess what the matter is in order to achieve SBMM, what it will sometimes do is it will matchmake you into matches that gets you to players around your skill, but it's at the expense of latency. And so, Call of Duty does this thing where you see, I'm searching for, I can't remember exactly what the number breakdowns are, so I'm just making these up. But it will say, I'm looking for matches with less than 3 milliseconds ping. Doesn't find it. 8 milliseconds ping, doesn't find it. 22 milliseconds ping, doesn't find it. 39 milliseconds, right? So it just keeps going down this path where eventually you're starting to go into matches where you are negatively impacted by high ping. And when you're the person who's on a fast internet connection versus a person who's on a slow internet connection, it may really be kind of you that's getting punished, right? By being dragged down to the lowest common denominator. So I get why people are upset about it. And in particular, then the way it kind of manifests itself is that lag, that ping causes you to play at, maybe arguably less than the proficiency that you would normally play at. So I get why people are bothered. But I mean, the tale of this tape is really how it was just a very, very, very bad day for Call of Duty. When the system did come back up, it was a double XP weekend, and I don't honestly know if that was planned because they don't often announce those things until kind of like right before they happen, or whether or not they just kind of in an emergent fashion turned double XP on for this weekend in order to compensate and make up for any bad PR and blowback. Tao, were you trying to get on to the Call of Duty servers at all during this outage?
No, yeah, I didn't. I haven't played in a while, but. I don't know. I've never had any issues with the matchmaking itself. Like, yeah, I mean, every once in a while you get a lobby where you get trounced, but for the most part, it always seemed pretty balanced. But I see like everybody here or a lot of people online were like, oh, it's finally down, so let's go play. But it doesn't make any sense to me. Why you'd want it down? But that's just me.
Well, what people complain about a little bit are that because you're constantly around players who are of similar skill to you, it's always sweaty, right? And I get it. And I guess part of my thing is because I've been on this ramp of coming back to Call of Duty after like a 10-year layoff. And so I haven't minded being in sweaty matches, right? And constantly having to kind of up my game. Maybe if I have gotten better, I don't particularly think that I'm a decent player. But if I have gotten better, it's definitely been because of that. And I think I learn from that much more because these games and combat skills, even in video games, are about putting in a number of reps, right? We all have like the Tiger Woods thing now of like it takes 10,000 reps, to become a professional at anything. And the problem with being in matches with other players, if you remember back in the days of older CODs, there was just a ton of spawn camping. You were constantly getting bodied. You've got to be alive long enough, right, to actually exercise the skills and get good at anything. And that's very difficult to do if you're constantly surrounded by players who are better than you. when you're playing with people at parity, that allows you to get a little better. Now, one argument might be, well, okay, but then you're never going to get better with players in that bracket. You would hope that over time you would kind of move up and see yourself, match with different people. So I don't know. I know in the wake of it, I was able to get on, and I actually had I've been having some really good matches this weekend, maybe arguably above the norm. So I don't know if SBMM is still kind of off or what, or if they've, balanced things out because of that latency and lag problem that people have complained about. But I know, I think my first match actually back, I had something ridiculous like a 6.4 KD. That's no mess. You can go to my Twitter account and see where I posted it. So, I've had a good time. Well, we're going to talk about the gameplay itself later on tonight, so I don't want to take up time doing that now. Warwana's in the chat. Thank you very much. Warwana mentions he missed the start, but he's here now. So thanks a lot, Warwana, for stopping by. We appreciate you. Tao, you have a news story. And you wanted to cover some of the things that you saw at the Nintendo Direct. So why don't you go ahead and take us away with that?
Yeah, so I'm not going to go through everything here. I'll just kind of stop at things. And the first couple, actually, I'm going to skip for now. I'm going to save that to the end that were Xbox related. Couple of the games here, though, or a few of the games here that I saw that were kind of interested to me. Was a Ranger, a role puzzling adventure. And this is coming out in summer 2024. And this, so I don't know if you remember like those old puzzles you would kind of play with back in the day, like when you were a kid or maybe a teenager, because some of them were kind of hard. But there'd be like a square of like, I don't know, just say 10 squares with one square missing, and you kind of have to flip the tiles around or flip each square to make it like a picture or something. That's what this kind of looks like as you're moving through the world. You kind of like, it kind of goes kind of like square to square, and as you move, everything else on that square or on that row moves with you. So if there's like a building or a person like behind you and you're moving to the right, that's gonna it's gonna keep going to the right with you as you move. So I just thought aesthetically that was like kind of interesting, but might be kind of annoying depending on how hard it is when you're trying to match up things, and I'm sure there's gonna be puzzles where you have to match things up, or you get into a room, like there's gonna be like a bunch of squares and you have to like figure out what's going where. So that was one that I saw. The next one is Disney's Epic Mickey Rebrushed, which was from 2011's Epic Mickey, which I believe was on the Switch. I'm sorry, not Switch, on the Wii. I don't think it was on the Wii U. I think it came out on the Wii, the original Wii. I think there was two of them too, I believe, at one point. But this is a remaster of that game, so you get enhanced graphics, new skills for Mickey, and other improvements, which you'll see. Which I kind of saw some side by side pictures of like the old game in this one, and yeah, it does look like it's it looks a lot better. For those that like this game, it's not my wheelhouse, but Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, which is the definitive version of SMT5, as they say here, which brings along some new storyline featuring new locations and demons, along with the base game, the original base game that was originally released. That's coming out June 21st. A lot of these games, I don't think that went past. I don't think any of them went past the summer, I believe, as I'm going through here. Next one, which I was kind of excited about, was Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection. It's coming out March 14th, so in a few weeks here. So you get the original Battlefront, the first two Battlefront games, which I think there was only two, that have been remastered and updated. Features such as new player characters, so you get Kit Fisto from the prequel trilogy, and then Asajj Ventress, which is from originally from Clone Wars, and she might have been in Rebels. I'm not sure if they ever showed her on there. Along with a few bonus maps. You got Jabba's Palace, Bespin, Cloud City, and Yavin 4 Arena. So if you don't know what Battlefront is, so it's kind of like basically Battlefield, but with Star Wars characters. You got the big battlefield that you can that you're battling either different points or just death matches and stuff like that. So I actually missed these games back in the day because I think they were originally out on the original Xbox, which I didn't have. So it'd be nice to revisit these. And then you have Sword Art Online, which I'm Fractured Daydream, which is coming out sometime this year. It reminded me a lot of Monster Hunter games, so I wonder if that's what they're trying to go for, if there's just certain aspects of the game that they're trying to lean toward that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Kind of going down here, you got a World of Goo 2, which is a sequel to the original World of Goo, I believe was on the Wii. Penny's Big Breakaway, which is actually came out that same day as the Direct, which is a 3D platformer from the makers of Sonic Mania. So it looked kind of interesting. So maybe check that out one at some point. I got the Suika Game multiplayer expansion, which I mentioned earlier. There's a couple more here. Pocket, one that I didn't think I'd be excited for. Why I never was excited for before because I've heard of these games before. But Pocket Card Jockey Ride On, which is kind of like a horse racing game, but I guess it's like a card. You use like card battle system also. So since I've kind of gotten into those kind of games, I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. So this particular game was on an iOS exclusive, a sequel to the Pocket Card Jockey, which I guess originally was on Nintendo systems, and it went exclusive to iOS. But this is coming to Switch, and that's actually out as of that Direct. Also, I got some more coverage on Contra Operation Galuga. I think that's how you say it. Which is coming out March 12th. And there's a demo out now. So that's kind of like the remake of the original NES Contra Classic game. So that looked pretty cool. And I can't remember, I don't know if it was you or if it was DB. I guess you had mentioned that you weren't too keen on like kind of the graphic style because it's like the 3D graphics engine, or the 3D graphics basically, instead of, obviously sprite based. But I don't know if you've changed your mind or if you're kind of still kind of meh on it.
No, and what was the title again? I'm sorry.
It was the Contra Operation Galuga. It was kind of the remake of the original NES Contra game.
Yeah, I think that was probably DBQ because I don't know that I've really weighed in on the graphical style of the game. I think it's neat that we're getting a Contra title back after all this time.
Yeah, that looks kind of cool. So. And then the last couple that I'll mention, you had the Endless Ocean Luminous, which is coming out May 2nd, which was, I believe, one of the last kind of big games that came out on the Wii. It was basically just kind of exploration game where you're exploring an ocean, just finding like different fish and different plants and stuff underwater. This one you'll have 500 species of marine life, including extinct creatures. So they did show like a mosasaur and I think maybe a plesiosaur during the video, but you can also go online and play with 30 other people, so you can dive around and find fish. So I think that's kind of cool. And then the last couple here are the rare games that are coming to Switch Online. So you have two NES games, Snake Rattle and Roll, which I didn't recognize the title or when they were showing it, but I do I recognize like the comic book or the art cover from the game cover here, as they show in the picture. And then RC Pro-Am, which I actually did play a little bit of, kind of going back to that. It's kind of a classic racer game, kind of like that isometric style graphics. Then you have a couple of SNES games, Battletoads and Battle Maniacs, and then Killer Instinct. So I remember playing both of those, actually were pretty cool. And then finally, N64 game, Blast Core. So those were all rare games that came out. And then a few weeks ago, we had the big Xbox, podcast that came out, and they had mentioned that there was the four games that were going to be coming out, and they didn't want to name them because they didn't want to take anything away from the studio's announcements. But we found out two of them during the Direct here, and then we found out the other two, which kind of everybody had already guessed them anyways. But I think either in that same day or like the day after. So Pentiment from Obsidian, which I believe we've mentioned here. Kind of a narrative adventure game, and I remember the art style was kind of like that, kind of like medieval, like painting type of graphic style. So that's coming to PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and then the Switch, because that was part of the Direct. That's on February 22nd, which just came out a few days ago. And then the first game they actually had announced was Grounded. I actually led off with the partner Direct, once again from Obsidian. It was kind of that survival action adventure game where you kind of get turned small, kind of like Honey Shrunk the Kids. You get thrown in there, you kind of in the background, kind of survival adventure, crafting and stuff like that. So that's coming to PlayStation 4 or 5 once again, and of course on Switch on April 16th. And all that will have cross-platform with Xbox and PC also. So that's pretty cool. they're going to have that. And then the other two titles that we found out, like I said, it was either that same day or the next day. This came out on Xbox Wire. Was Hi-Fi Rush is coming to PlayStation 5 on March 19th. So that's that rhythm-based action game, which I did play a little bit. I got to get back to that game because it was pretty cool. I did like the music, since they actually used like real music, not just, licensed music, not just, made it up. So that's coming out. And then Sea of Thieves is the final one, which, like I said, I think everybody had already guessed like all four of these games already. And that's coming out on April 30th. And that also will be in cross-play with Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. They don't mention, there's no Switch on this one for right now. So we'll see, maybe the Switch 2 hits, if we'll get Sea of Thieves on that one. But so those are the four games that Microsoft is bringing to other systems, other consoles, the big hubbub that we had a couple weeks ago. But so that should be, it's pretty cool. Like I said, most of these had already been pretty much guessed, but it's nice that they're bringing these games out. I think we had talked about it a little, and I believe you guys had talked about it last week, I think, too, when I was watching the show, that it's nice of them to kind of maybe not as popular, or just stuff that's been out there for a while already. They'll throw them out on other systems and see what happens. But anything there on the partner direct itself that you might have an interest in, since I know you're kind of the third party guy on the Switch for the most part.
Yeah, but nothing there that really, tipped the needle for me. Yes, I am more about playing, third party. I'm just not a Nintendo like first party style game. But what I do like on the Switch are PC ports, and I guess legacy. I don't know if I need to say legacy. I think it's just more a matter of like, I've had access to Grounded since, fall of 2022. It's just never been something that's interested me. I've had access to Pentiment, and, while I love Obsidian, and I think, quite frankly, as I have said many times, I think of all of the games of all the studios that Microsoft picked up in its, 6 years of acquisitions, I think Obsidian to me is like really the crown jewel, right, of all those things that they've acquired. But I get it. It was a manner in which they wanted to kind of stretch their creative wings, and I do appreciate that. But I just have never been personally interested in that game, and so it arriving on the Switch, doesn't really do a lot for me.
All right. We had a couple of comments here from one. He said 500 wowzers for the Luminous, the Ocean one. Also, worst kept secret for all those games, the 4 games. And he says, I'm still dying to see COD on Switch. Yes, we'll. Suppose you're going to see that at some point. I'm assuming probably Switch 2, though. Maybe not so much this current iteration of the Switch. But hey, you never know. Maybe they'll make one. I know they made, I think they made a COD for Wii, didn't they? It was like something different from all the rest of them that were out there.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of the last heave of the way the Call of Duty franchise had always existed before, which is that the annual release would come out, and this was in the years really before we got to Modern Warfare, and what Call of Duty would do is like the mainline game would come out on PC and maybe consoles, but not consoles, but would come out on PC, but then each of the consoles would get like a different version. And so you would get Call of Duty, whatever was on PC, but then it would be Call of Duty, blah, blah, blah. And like that was the version that was on Xbox, and then Call of Duty, blah, 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 which was, and that was the version that was on PlayStation. And what it was is they all had like slightly different like stories and protagonists and things like that, before they really kind of unified, the series around, its singular title and its, in its face, and I think really before they got to this whole thing of like it was multiple studios and and they had them all working together and all under one kind of management roof. But yeah, that's what it was like back in the day.
Yeah. He also mentioned I've tried Grounded but couldn't get into it. Pentiment I finished. I didn't mind it, to be honest. So.
Yep. And then Warren says, I have faith it will run on this Switch as they got Hogwarts Legacy running on it, but I'm interested to see how different it looks to console COD. LOL. So the next story in the rundown is this story over on gamesindustry.biz by Sophie McAvoy. IGN Creators Guild recognized as a union And I quote, "We are thrilled IGN came to the table and recognized us as a group. IGN parent company Ziff Davis has voluntarily recognized the recently formed IGN Creators Guild. The work on the union shared the news on Twitter after announcing its unionization on February 6th. So, you know, this is a very kind of preliminary statement. Again, I don't necessarily know like what it means or what impact we would see from a consumer-facing perspective. I'm really kind of not certain how the notion of unionization really has like an impact from a content perspective on what IGN does. I would assume that over time we would maybe see less, and maybe what will tamp down is a little less of kind of some of the foolish articles that they've written, you know, with kind of spectacularized headlines or sensationalized headlines, and then you go in the article, and the article's not really, you know, that pertinent to like what the title was. So I think at the end of the day, hopefully what would happen is the unionization of these employees would lead to maybe a slight slowing down in pace so that they could pay attention more so to quality. Tao, any comments from you on that topic?
No, yeah, I mean, that was the first I've heard of it. So it's interesting that, you know, they're doing it, I suppose, like that the parent companies, you know, recognize it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, this article and maybe an article on IGN itself, I mean, I got a pretty decent account, you know, of what did happen, but I don't really understand like what the unionization was trying to fix or what their problem was with management. So it would have been interesting to hear, you know, a little more from that perspective. So I'm not sure exactly, you know, what that whole thing does. I'm hoping that it provides something that is actually of value and that there's not a negative impact, right? The right way for this to happen would be that we, you know, if we were, the royal we, right? So for any listeners out there who are avid readers of IGN, hopefully you will not like be impacted, but you know, we'll see how it goes. Next story in the rundown is a little financial news. This one over on Push Square. January 2024, USA sales, Tekken, Suicide Squad, Persona, Like a Dragon, The Last of Us, all winners on PlayStation 5. And so, like I said, this story over on PlayStation, over on Push Square by Robert Ramsey. So the story goes, and I quote, January 2024 was a busy month for new game releases as the freshly published USA software charts demonstrate this fact quite well. As per Sakana's Matt Piscatella, again, for those of you who were around and remember the company that was formerly known as NPD, this is the exact same company. They just renamed and are rebranding. So as per Sakana's Matt Piscatella, 6 new titles made the cut, with 4 of those games pushing straight into the top 10, all platforms included. So, you know, the tail of the tape here is, it's getting to the point now where it may say we no longer need to be surprised about, you know, kind of a slew of good games coming out in Q1 of any given year. So a couple of different things lead to that dynamic, and that's that one, it is the first dumping ground that games that fail to make the holiday season get pushed to. So if a game, you know, wins its argument that, hey, we need more time for polish, then this is how you get, you know, some of these games. But the big thing here is, you know, we have this ongoing dialogue, you know, games that matter, games that maybe should make up the things that people want to champion. But what I keep kind of pointing back to is, you know, look at these sales numbers, and there are aspects of these sales numbers that I don't like. They're not the way maybe you would argue that maybe the market should be, but they are the way that the market is. And the market cries out for AA games and it cries out for indies, but then we go back to this list and they're not that. So quick big ticket items, and it might be all big ticket items in this list, but over on that NPD list, the top 20, you've got Call of Duty at the top. You've got Tekken 8 comes in second. Great, right? Seeing that game. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. You could dislike the game, but I mean, I can't hate on a game for its success. Gotham Knights also charted in the NPD. They were number 17 for the year that they launched, despite the bad reviews. We have Persona 3 Reload made it into the top 20. Hogwarts holding in strong. Like a Dragon Infinite, another good deal for a release being up there. Last of Us Part 2 and Marvel's Spider-Man 2 coming in at 9 and 10. Super Mario Brothers Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, so good for Ubisoft. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, again, good for Ubisoft. And then, some other games kind of round out the top 20. So Tao, anything in the top 20 that kind of stood out at you?
No. It's good to see Prince of Persia up there, and Mario Wonder still holding strong. I was kind of wondering though for Suicide Squad, because that came out actually in February 2nd, technically. I don't know if they're just doing pre-orders, and obviously if you pre-ordered it, you got the early access. So I'm assuming that's how that worked, I guess.
Well, you're a comic book guy, so you are very familiar with the infamous 5-week month. And what that does to the comic book cycle, where you sometimes will have a week where there's nothing because there's a fifth week, or sometimes that fifth week, just like everything that's been late, comes out and gets pushed to the fifth week. This is kind of similar where right, because if you think about sales data, ostensibly there's 4 shopping weeks in a month, theoretically, right? So for 4 months of the year, you're going to have a 5-week reporting period, and that's what happened here. So the fifth week of this month actually bled into the beginning of February, and that's how you got some of the sales data. That in and of itself, right, should be a thing that's taken into consideration. So yeah, Suicide Squad came out the first week of February. So
February 2nd. Yep.
So here it is at number 3 in the chart after what must have just been a handful of days on retail shelves, so to speak, from a digital perspective. So again, I mean, lots of people went out and bought this game, and I don't think it's great for Warner Brothers, but I think Warner Brothers definitely banks on that, right? When it thinks about, oh, this thing isn't looking that great, but we kind of know that people are going to buy it because it's got a DC superhero license. So I'm sorry, what other things kind of stood out at you from the list?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, you still got the staples on there, like Mario Kart and Minecraft still in. Mortal Kombat 1 still in there, so that's good to see. That's still going strong. So yeah, actually, I'm glad Like a Dragon 2 is still up there in the top 10. So I think that had just been out that month, I believe, earlier in the month. So I haven't played any of the Like a Dragons yet, but I heard they're really, really good. But also they're turn-based, so I don't know if I'll ever get to them, but we'll see. Maybe one day.
Yeah, so I mean, arguably in this list, you don't have anything that's. I mean, I might call Persona 3 Reloaded AA. I don't know. Prince of Persia would be AA. And then I guess Minecraft and Jujutsu Kaisen. So you have 4 games that are kind of, maybe what somebody would argue is AA. But again, this is where I go to, people who say, AAA games, aren't making it. They're failing all the time. That it's not what people want. I mean, that's clearly not what the sales data, right, purports. So Warwana mentions in the chat, I think it in a way proves that heavy marketing works. Indie titles can do well, but they generally don't, and they do not usually have much marketing budget. And Wara, I don't disagree with you, but I think there's maybe an argument to be had there about which is the chicken and which is the egg. What I feel like is those things don't get big marketing budgets because they're not what people buy, and so you could put a lot of money behind an indie if you wanted to, but it's not going to achieve the sales numbers that are commensurate with that kind of budget. But I don't know. And then he also mentions, but this is one of my favorite parts of Steam is the fact that indies can thrive more easily. Yeah, and I definitely agree. There was
a word of mouth kind of a thing too on Steam. Like you see that big hit and everybody kind of starts talking about it, and kind of just blossoms.
We just have a great ecosystem, right? Of the user reviews on Steam are reliable, and I don't know why. And I used to attribute that solely to the fact that the whole system of only people who can review a game, right, are people who have bought it. So that lends way more credibility. And yes, there are some weird kind of trash talking reviews on Steam, but by and large, when you look at the real bulk of the Steam community reviews that are written, I don't. A lot of them, a lot more of them, I would say, are substantive, right? Like I talk about, both on Twitter and on places where people can put user reviews, and I'm like, look, if you just put in your user review, this game is trash or this game is garbage, that doesn't give the developer anything to take action on, right? That as a software person, I get that kind of feedback from a customer, and I just shrug my shoulders and I move on, because I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? And if I did try and guess, what I'm going to wind up doing is I'm going to wind up exerting some number of hours of engineering labor effort with no certainty that what I'm doing actually addresses your problem. So am I going to grease the palm, right, for that? Or am I going to focus on some more substantive input that I got that actually gives me something tangible and actionable that I can actually go do something about? But for the most part, at least for me, when I'm scrolling, the top reviews, I don't find that many that are of a nature that, like, I would look at them and a developer would look at them and say, well, I can't do anything about that. They tend to just be higher quality, and I don't know that that's entirely due to just because the only people that can. I mean, I guess it is in a large part of that, but I want to give some of the credit to the Steam community as well. I just think they're a little more. They have a little more wherewithal to them, when they're writing feedback. Because I think they actually do want the games to be fixed, right, or to be improved, or they want other developers to see those reviews and go, hey, this isn't good. Let me not do that. Maybe. I don't know. Any other comments on the NPD Top 20, Tao?
Yep.
Okay. I may have rambled at the beginning of the bit there.
That's all right.
But sure. I think now I have lost my place on the teleprompter. But Tao, you have the next story. Actually, I think the last story in the news rundown about a new title announced, or was this released? Or why don't you go ahead and take us through it?
Yeah, it's a new Age of Empires title that they announced. They had done like New Year, New Age of Empires kind of live stream this past week, where they just kind of talked about several different things. So there's new DLC coming to the Empires 2 and 3 definitive editions, which is kind of interesting that those are getting new DLC. Also talking about Age of Mythology, so that's coming out this year. Not only for PC, obviously coming to Game Pass, but also coming to Xbox Series X and S. So that should be interesting. Try that on the consoles. So sometimes that's hit or miss. When you get RTS type of games on consoles. But then the other thing they had announced was the Age of Empires mobile game coming out, and it's being brought to us by I don't know if it's called Timmy or just TIMI Studio Group, which also has done the Call of Duty mobile game, along with Honor of Kings, which I'm not sure what that game is, and Pokemon Unite, which is that MOBA type of game that uses the Pokemon characters. So, pretty good track record, I guess, with having like popular games, but I don't know. Honor of Kings might be some kind of RTS, or maybe even like like a strategy game, but I have never heard of that game before. So, but I'm assuming it's pretty popular if they kind of listed it under there with those other games. But it's going to have it's free to play, so there you're going to have the normal kind of, I don't want to say trappings, but your normal things with you can speed up progression or obtain resources a little bit faster, obviously if you pay a little bit of money. But like the PC games, obviously you'll be able to do base building, empire building, combat, and RTS, a different kind of RTS elements. But it's not strictly an RTS game they're talking about here in this article from IGN. Rather, it's a mix of different strategy mechanics, and we'll also see certain elements of customization for mobile devices. Which I'm not. I mean, I don't know how they're going to customize stuff, but maybe just characters or something, or battlements. But available characters will span a number of historical excuse me, including Chinese, Roman, Frank, and Byzantine empires. So you'll have one-on-one battles or larger siege battles that you can also do online or by yourself. So just thought it was kind of interesting. I know there's that not Call of Duty, Command and Conquer game that came out a few years ago, which I tried and I was just like, it's not. It was just too much. It leaned too much into the free to play aspect. Obviously with you have to buy certain things to progress in the game. So I was just like, I'm not going to do that. I hope they don't do that too much in this, and obviously they have to because it's free to play. But hopefully it's not too much of a stranglehold on the game itself. But is there any interest at all? A game, at least I'm checking it out.
No, I'm just not a big mobile player, and I mean the notion of, I mean, is it still the same genre on mobile? Is it still an RTS?
Yeah, supposedly, yeah, it's still going to be RTS with some other kind of strategy, I guess, mechanics. They didn't really go into detail on what the different strategy mechanics are, but I guess we'll have some other type of gameplay in there too.
Yeah, and I am very particular about like only playing games that are really like best on PC, on anything other than PC, and like in RTS, yeah. I mean, but I guess this would probably have a modified gameplay approach in some way. I mean, I guess my question, Tao, is if you like the Age of Empires. I think this is going to be a total mobile gaming cash grab, like. Because if the game skated that close to what the like design of Age of Empires is, like that, you could already access that game via mobile, via Xbox Cloud Gaming, and you would think that Xbox, who has the telemetry, would think that and believe that most of its gamers are on Game Pass. So it just seems to be weird, like why you would do this, unless, like I said, it's a total gotcha game kind of effort to get to people who are on console. Now, what it also kind of rings similar to is, the thing that we've talked about, I think, on the show before that makes me cranky, which is you take something like was it the third Captain America? Yeah, the third Captain America movie, and you call it Civil War. When as a comic book person, you're like, that's not Civil War. And then people will argue and come back to you and say, well, they had to call it Civil War in order to make people think that it was important and pay attention to it. I'm like, okay, but the people who recognize that name as something as important are also the people who know that it's not Civil War, right? And the people who don't know, you don't need to call it Civil War to get them to pay attention to it because it doesn't do anything for them. So that's kind of what this is. It seems like maybe they're trying to grab the Age of Empires name because they think it's gonna like resonate somehow with people who aren't gamers. But I'm like, I'm sorry, I hope I said Age of Empires. I may have said Age of Total War or something. But
you said Age of Empires.
Okay, yeah. But but again, those people don't need it to be called Age of Empires, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's a hope that those of us who do know what the name is will recommend it to, like, I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah, and I know they have the developer who does Call of Duty Mobile and Pokemon Unite. Obviously, Call of Duty Mobile is huge. Pokemon Unite's still going strong out there, and it's like, I get it, like with those IPs, but with Age of Empires, like it's beloved and like it does well, but I don't think it's like a huge IP out there. Like, I hate to say that. I mean, I like it too. I like playing those those games because it's an RTS type of game. But I don't know if they might be banking on the name a little bit too much, maybe. Like, trying to get it out there.
Well, where the game would maybe get you some traction is like people who were kids when Age of Empires was big, like when Age of Empires 2 was big, and played Age of Empires, but aren't like really big, like desktop or console gamers now. And so but they obviously have a phone, right? And thinking, oh, well, there's a couple million people who, played Age of Empires back in the day, and they'll see this, right? And they'll see it in the App Store, and on Google Play, and they'll download it, based on the name alone. I don't know, maybe.
yeah, that's coming out sometime this year. They didn't say exactly when, but you can pre-register for it on, I believe, both Android and iOS right now. So if you want to check it out, pre-register.
Yeah, and Wara says the same thing. I see it as just the using the IP to get more downloads using the name.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move along to segment 3 and go ahead and wrap up the show, close the show out with our out brief of other games that we have been playing that are not new games. The first one I'll mention is, I obviously said that, I'd been trying to get into Call of Duty, and once I found out that it was double XP weekend, I definitely pushed right to make sure I was playing some Call of Duty this weekend for double XP. It's the games to me is still good to great. And I may have mentioned on this show before, I've definitely mentioned on other shows, like the thing, look, out of, games as a service, particularly PvP shooters, need to do 4 things, right? They need to have skins and weapons and cosmetics. They need to have maps. They need to have LTMs, limited time modes, and they need to have LTEs, limited time events. Right, those are the 4 core things that the industry has kind of rounded out to being. These are the things that constitute what a game as a service delivers. Call it it's skins and stuff these days. Like I've just grown to care less and less about, particularly as they're mixed in with the battle pass. They kind of just happen. Even like as I was. And I'm not done with Halo Infinite. Will probably go back and play Halo Infinite, but games like Halo Infinite and Destiny, like I just grew to a point where I was like, I don't really care like what new skin I get anymore. But out of those 4, the thing that I like the most is maps. That is kind of the core content, right? That a game as a service, particularly again a PvP shooter, delivers that really kind of jazzes me up. And the map rotation, right, and then that content also has to be put to good use, right, via the map rotation. And this is for instance where Halo Infinite was doing, it was doing some of a job of new maps, but where they were really tanking it was then the map rotation would be horrible, and so you would constantly see the bad maps of the new maps, and you would sometimes see the same map, multiple times in a row, and you're like, why is that happening? So. And then really, they didn't have, very strong map content really, I felt, until like they got the Forge online, because then they were able to lean on and borrow maps that the community made. So Call of Duty suffers in a certain way in the past where they kind of get looked at a little bit with a side eye, because the maps that they provide lots of times are regurgitations, right? Or redraws, or a sprucing of a legacy map. But sometimes that also plays in their favor, because legacy and nostalgia, right, is part of a reason why a large amount of the player base, right, plays Call of Duty multiplayer. Laura mentions, then 343 was like, here's Forge, make new maps for us. But right now, the map rotation in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 is great. It does the thing that I've seen Call of Duty Mobile, which is a game that's done by Tencent, do, which is they have a map rotation that includes like literally all the maps, like all the maps you've ever seen in Call of Duty Mobile, Modern Warfare, Black Ops Cold War, Modern Warfare 2, and now you're starting to see that same thing on PC, on the desktop version, on the grown-up version of Modern Warfare 3, and includes the maps that game has generated as well. So it's a huge map rotation. Tonight I played a little bit before the show, and I got Breenberg Hotel. So a lot of these maps that came along with Call of Duty Black Ops, a lot of these maps that came along with Modern Warfare 2 that have, like I said, it pulls at that nostalgia effect where a map comes up and you're like, oh, I remember this, right? And you remember the experiences, you remember playing with your buddies, and and things like that, even for maps that are right of recent time. So it's doing good. They're doing, like I said, I think they're doing a good job with small maps. So now you have Rust, you have Shipment, but you also have Meat and Stash House, right? So you have a little bit more, I feel like, of a small map rotation than in previous seasons where you've typically had like 2. So, say what you will about the single player campaign, say what you will about kind of leaning on the content of last year that was done by Infinity Ward in terms of the weapons. I think Modern Warfare 3 is killing it, right? Like, I mean, and again, getting to use those weapons for a second year staves off that feeling of disappointment that we get every year, where it's like, hey, I just worked a year to get a bunch of stuff, and now I got to start all over again. So, I'm having a good time playing. I'm loving the double XP weekend. I hope to play more. I've mentioned on the show before, I'm finally, removing all shame and saying, fine, I'll play Shipment, over and over and over again, so that I can, I don't care how many times I get killed, as long as I get a few kills with my handgun, so I can level that thing. So I think if I didn't mention earlier, I finished max leveling the Basilisk, which is like this big 50 cal, revolver that kind of reminds me of like, sledgehammers, for people who remember that deep cut of a television show. So I finally maxed level that thing, and that's the thing. The thing that's great about a double XP weekend is, there's a lot of things you got to do for weapons unlocks that are not fun, right? Like the Basilisk becomes a fun weapon, and now that I've max leveled it and I can run around with akimbo pistols, but like it was not fun max leveling the Basilisk. So it's been nice and enjoyable to get some weapon unlocks out of the way. And before I move on to the next game, Warwana says, yes, my KD is almost positive on this map. Let's go. I mentioned Shipment is like being 201 again and going to some rave, but everyone is wearing more clothes. Yeah, you're not wrong, Warwana. The second game I've been playing, and this is actually kind of my favorite thing to report out on, is it's probably going to be a pivot turn for the remainder of this year, which I'm glad I'm making it in February, but I kind of came through a lot of soul searching this week and was like, I'm definitely going to get back to games where, I'm able to lay hands on, my peripherals, my specialized peripherals that I have, my, flight control systems, my wheel and pedals. I am going to spend some time, this year, backing off a little bit of the games that I feel like I play out of obligation, and back to games involving vehicle simulations. So I was able to take Microsoft Flight Simulator out for a run this weekend. Had a really good time. I'm using my Thrustmaster HOTAS X flight control system, which is an old like PlayStation 3 era flight control system. It is probably not long for this world, although I kind of really like that control system because I have non-skid strips around the different surfaces, because it's really kind of like a rounded, slick flight control system. So it's nice that it's modified to give me extra grip to it. But I did break down, I put enough time into Microsoft Flight Simulator this weekend, and kind of have configured my dedication to that and flight sims in general for the remainder of the year. And so that gave me enough confidence to go ahead and order the Logitech G flight yoke system, which should be arriving for me tomorrow. It's like a $170 flight control system, so it is cheaper than the Thrustmaster ACA flight bus captain's pack, which is another thing that I'm eyeing, and the Thrustmaster Velocity 1 yoke and throttle quadrant set. I decided I'm going to go with a less expensive flight control system to use on PC, whereas I'll hold off and get a nicer one that I can use with PC and Xbox, which is the same thing that I did with my wheel and pedals. So. But what I did was I went in and kind of used a website that's like a random U.S. city generator, and just kind of randomly generated 2 cities, and I got Riverside, California, and Chesapeake, Virginia. So I went in and built a flight plan to fly out of Riverside Municipal Airport and land at Chesapeake International. That cross country flight is too long for the aircraft I'm using. I'm using the Daher TBM 930. Which is this high performance but single seat kind of small aircraft, like owned by most of the ownership of it is by private pilots. There are a few kind of corporate aircraft that corporations that use it as their main aircraft, but I've had a good time, right, flying that aircraft. I guess I was flying like a beach aircraft before, so this is kind of my second one that I'm kind of tooling around with. And since that cross-country flight is too long, because that aircraft can carry about, I think, like 300 pounds of fuel, but it gives it a range of a steady cruise range of about 1440 nautical miles. I think max at like 1730 nautical miles. I had to pick a midway point to do a layover, and I picked Clinton International Airport in Little Rock, Arkansas. So I'm flying in to there. So having a good time, flying over the mountains of Arizona now, diving down. I do a couple of these, what I call low altitude excursions. So, I get down on the deck and trying to have some fun, going in and out of the mountains and the lakes and, riverbeds and stuff there, just to kind of fool around. And then I climb back up to cruising altitude, using all the various stuff to check in with the air control towers and things like that. So I know it is not everyone's cup of tea, but it is, as anybody who's spent any time watching this show, you guys should all know that I'm deep into vehicle simulations. So I'm having a good time. And Microsoft Flight Simulator is it's a huge sprawling game in terms of content. It comes with 45 aircraft. There are obviously other add-on packs and stuff that you can get. But the other thing, and I think the thing that really hit me this week is, because we've talked very extensively about the topic of onboarding and how that, can bring a new player in, but it can also turn a player off, right? In many games, in many long running franchises. And this game has really good onboarding. Like outside of the flight plan, that's a pain in the butt. and I'm cranky and salty about that. Just because of the way the UI just really works and it's not intuitive. But let's say you get past that. Once you get in the aircraft, like you get in the aircraft, you're on the tarmac, you're taxiing. It's really easy to get the aircraft in the air, get to the quick access menu at the top, and just kind of learn to fly the plane right while it's flying. There's a couple things that it definitely helps to have some like background and situational awareness, like figure out where the autopilot is and figure out like the autopilot is. I mean, I played F-16 Falcon back in the day. Like the autopilot is not intuitive. Like lots of video games model the autopilot as just like a button you push and then you're done. But this has like a heading mode and a course indicator mode and a velocity, altitude hold mode. Like, so it has a few different bells and whistles. But in general, it's really good onboarding in my opinion. There's a few kind of wonky things, like you bring up the nav log and like the flight plan isn't really in there. So you piece together the flight plan by like the nav log menu and then actually like the altitude selector hold menu, because the nav log just shows like your final destination. It doesn't really show your waypoints, like as you would normally be accustomed to seeing like in any other kind of flight simulator, because it's modeling flight simulators in the real world and these Garmin head units that go in small aircraft. So it's fun. It's the type of fun that I like, which is not the type of fun that I know other people like. So I get it, but but for people who are into flight simulators, it's definitely doing a good deal. And I'm looking forward to the 2024 content as well. Tao, you have also been playing something super popular. That also it's kind of an Xbox night, right? I mean, Call of Duty now owned by Xbox, Microsoft Flight Simulator obviously coming from Xbox, and you have been playing another game that is kind of synonymously kind of thought of in close association with Xbox.
Yeah, so it's Palworld. I'm still plugging away on that, and yeah, I mean it's Xbox and PC, so Xbox is the only console right now, and as they've numerous times have said, one of their biggest third-party launches ever for a third-party game. So, but yeah, I've been playing it pretty much exclusively on the Steam Deck last few weeks, a little bit on PC here and there. Once again, though, on my commutes and stuff, I'll just pop into it. I don't need, it's not on, you don't need an online connection, so I can just go offline if I need to, and then just sync up later on once I get a Wi-Fi connection or whatever. Sometimes I'll just tether it to my phone just to upload the save I'm doing right before I shut off. But just plugging away. I'm just doing my single player world right now. So it's I'm just taking my time on it and get I've gotten a whole heck of a lot of the different pals now, Pokemon, whatnot, in the world. So I think I hit the 90 mark about a week and a half ago. The different pals you can get, and I think there's over 100. I don't know what I forgot what the exact number was, but so I'm getting up there. I think some of the higher ones, like I'll have to like grind to get my pals, up to snuff to get like the bosses and stuff like that, and some of the mini bosses. But for the most part, I'm just just taking my time, just enjoying the game. So it's nothing too. It's grindy, but it's nothing too grindy like in some of the Pokemon games where you have to really, get your guys, powered up, and sometimes you have to breed certain ones to get these certain powers to defeat certain bosses and stuff like. You don't really have to do that here. It's just gonna, power 'em up to certain levels, and then you can pretty much, defeat the different, creatures in the world. So it's not too bad. There's still obviously the, fire, water beats fire and fire beats, electricity and stuff like that. But you don't have all this other layers like on Pokemon and some of the other type of those games. So I was doing a bunch of breeding these past couple weeks, so I have started to kind of do it, which I haven't really done before. And I think it was more because I was just more time consuming before. Here is a lot of times it can be just like 5-10 minutes, maybe not even before yeah. Once you get the eggs from breeding, once you hatch them and stuff, so it's a little bit faster. And you can tweak those settings in the world if you want. I just left everything at normal right now. The only thing I think I ever changed was the when I actually die, um, I drop my stuff, but I just drop it like where I die, and I keep my pals that I have on me, so I can at least get back to where I was fairly quickly. And I think I mentioned it too. There's a bunch of fast travel points all around the map, so it's actually kind of nice. And that was the other thing I've been doing too. I was kind of uncovering the map because the map's pretty big, so just trying to get the different biomes and stuff that are in the world. So yeah, you got your normal snow and desert biomes and stuff like that, forests and all that. So just going around doing that. So just still having a good time. They haven't had any updates in the last couple of weeks. So I think from what I've read, maybe this week they're going to have a fairly big update, just to kind of, I think mostly on the Xbox side. I think the Xbox side, unfortunately, is actually have a bit of problems more than the PC side. Just a lot of lockups and games crashing and stuff like that. So, but hopefully they'll get that addressed. I know they have Microsoft's backing now. They've been working with them, hand in hand. So hopefully they get everything on that side. I haven't seen a lot of problems on the PC side or on the Steam Deck side. Sometimes Steam Deck I'm assuming just overheats because they'll just shut off all of a sudden. So I try not to play trying to play too long, and you usually can't play more than a couple hours anyways on the Steam Deck on a game like this, at least. Like I'm playing Wrestling Empire, that I can play for like an hour, and I still have I've barely used like 10% of the battery, so it's not a graphic powerhouse. But something like Palworld, and even with the graphics down, I was still, sometimes I would have that kind of just shut down issue. So I can start to hear the fans like blowing like crazy. So it's obviously not optimized for Steam Deck 2 yet, so it's definitely not verified, so I know that for sure. So but it's playable. So we're having fun.
Very cool. The last game that I will talk about, and I'll just mention it briefly because I didn't actually put it in the agenda because I'd forgotten that I'd actually played it, was while I was waiting for the Call of Duty servers to come back up, I actually pulled back down Destiny 2. And because I was looking through the Steam player charts, and I was like, I want to play something that's popular, has a good player count. And while I play, I play Destiny 2 entirely in single player mode. Like I don't play the multiplayer. It just came across my eye line. And then, kind of while I was looking at, the numbers for another recent game, which I think we talked about, the finals, because I wanted to kind of health check it and see how it was doing. And the Destiny 2 player count numbers at the time of day, completely anecdotal, were actually higher than the finals. And so I was like, oh, well, maybe I should go ahead and check that back out again. So I put it back down, and one of the co-hosts of the Basement Radio Arcade podcast had also mentioned recently And he was like, with the way the story is as convoluted as it is, you should just, like, with each new season, with each season, right, you should just, if you've lapsed and you haven't maintained continuity, you should just start a new character, because they just auto level, like, new characters to the same points that, like, your legacy characters had. So he's like, what difference does it make? And so I did exactly that. I deleted my warlock because that character didn't really mean anything to me in terms of my Destiny 2 account, and I started a new hunter. And so obviously we've known for a while that, like, the initial campaigns, like, have a completely different structure than what you actually played if you played Destiny 2 at launch. So, but I just went with it, and I got to tell you, in 2024, like, the gunplay of Destiny 2 is still, like, top notch in comparison to other shooters. There are, I don't know whether they've scaled difficulty or just, I don't know, I did better, but, when you, there's a tank that you encounter very early in the game, and I did a lot better against it than I've historically done against it. I mean, there were other players in the vicinity, but many times I've tried a run with a new character, or I've tried to take an old character even through that, and, like, the tank scales up in difficulty and combat performance, and it just becomes a bit of a pain to be bothered with it. You can actually get around it and just avoid getting hit and kind of bypass it, but this time, I went ahead and started attacking it, along with other people who were in the vicinity, and was able to do much better against it than I had previously done. So, recently had a discussion, not a discussion, but wrote a piece on Twitter because a lot of people were saying, Helldivers 2 is proof that Sony should have bought Arrowhead Studios instead of Bungie. And I'm like, oh, okay, time out. Like, look, Bungie has 33 years of experience under its belt. Arrowhead has like 12. Arrowhead has shipped like 5 games. Bungie has shipped like 17. So it's just, I'm not exactly certain about those numbers. I haven't looked at it, in a couple of days. But, like, look, any company doing its due diligence, and due diligence is an actual technical term, right? In terms of, like, the activity that has to go on during an M&A before it's approved. Lots of times, corporations will hire out and have a third party do it because they don't want, like, their own internal people to be biased, right, by, with a desire to bring on a new company because of the shot in the arm it's going to give to the corporation, or desire not to because the company eyes the acquisition with disdain and is like, well, we could do this work. So, but some people, like I said, were taking the Helldivers 2 success as a reason PlayStation should have bought Bungie, and I'm like, their accomplishments. I mean, I love what Helldivers 2 is doing, but its accomplishments in no way, like, overshadow what Destiny 2 has been. And the decision to acquire Bungie wasn't going to be made because a franchise that they've had and run since 2017, right, is not clicking on all cylinders. The only example we really have in the gaming space of anybody who's done as well or notionally better is Warframe, right? And I think as much as Warframe has kind of proven its longevity, I don't know that anybody will really compare Warframe to the content of Destiny 2. Just in terms of, like, graphical fidelity and quality. And again, you could say what you want about being disappointed, but, like, Warframe, I mean, Warframe is a mid 2000s game, right? I think the game first came out in 2009. I think, and it shows it again. It controls well, but it's not a 2017 game. So I think we just need to kind of hold those notions in abeyance. But so Warwana says, but why does Sony even need to buy Arrowhead? I hope Arrowhead stays indie. Let them cook. I've heard people suggest Sony to buy them ASAP. Yeah, I mean that's just because that's all the buzz now is who needs to acquire whom. Bungie legit helped Arrowhead with HD2. Yeah, and so I heard some vestiges of that as well. And mentions also that he agrees that Destiny 2 gunplay is just so satisfying. Sorry, one other one that I missed. Yeah, Palworld being on Game Pass at launch was a massive win for the service. Yeah, I don't disagree. Up next for me, I am going to actually get into Assetto Corsa on the PlayStation 5. Like I said, I'm going to I've dedicated myself to saying I'm going to spend more time with, racing games, flight sims, space sims, vehicle control games, so kind of like American Truck Simulator, Euro Truck Simulator, things like that this year. But that's my plan for tonight. I actually preloaded it on my PlayStation 5. And I'll be interested to take that for a spin and spend a few days with it again. Tal, what's coming up for you on your menu?
Probably still playing through Wrestling Empire. I forgot to mention I retired a couple times already in the game. And retired meaning I lost some sponsorships and I didn't have any money anymore. And another time I actually just died because I was trying to grab some food from this guy and he also had a phone in his hand. And when I went to grab the food, I guess I punched the phone and it exploded and killed me. So, hey, I got retired at that point. So some more wackiness in that game. So I'll continue. I'm on my third playthrough now. So trying to see how I can get a little bit better and how to I guess you can kind of move around in between the different associations in the game too. I got to figure out how to do that. So, because at some point it tells you like, hey, you've done all you can in this, federation, but it doesn't tell you how to move on. So it's like I'll have to look up something. So figure out how to do that. So I'll probably play more of that along with Palworld too. And also I jumped back into Fortnite in a kind of a big way. I hadn't played that in the past couple months, basically since Palworld. Even before Palworld came out, I had kind of dropped off a little bit, so I'm jumping back into that and playing the various modes in that. Kind of missing that game too.
Yeah. So Awana mentions that he hasn't tried a set of Corsa on console, only a set of Corsa Competizione. Wara, the only thing I would caution you is so there is a bug in a set of Corsa where, in particular, certain tuning settings, but in particular like tire pressure. If you go in, you're in the pre-race and you go in and you change the tuning on tire pressure, you will bounce back out to the menu and it will appear that your tire pressure change didn't take, or even though it looks like on the menu like it did take when you're actually on the track waiting for race start, right? And you cycle right the MFD or whatever around to tire pressure. The tire pressure will be the same as the default tire pressure. I think I want to say the workaround on it, at least on PC, is to I think what I would do is I would save the tuning file and then I would copy and paste the tire pressure settings, and then repaste them back into the current. So I don't know, it was some kind of goofy workaround. But on Xbox, there is no fix. That is a bug and there's no way around it. And the way Assetto Corsa works, there are many races which basically it's impossible for you to win, or it's just ridiculously possible for you to be competitive, unless you change your tire pressure to increase the amount of grip that your tires have from the default tuning. So that and lower your gas tank load, because for some reason the default setting is just max gas, which I think on other racing games, it's funny. I'm accustomed to, and I actually like that because again, they don't model that impact on the track as precisely as Assetto Corsa does. So in that first race, for instance, you have to lower your total fuel on board, or else you're just not going to be competitive right against the other car. So just as a heads up. Oh yeah, you got to be an alien to win. Right. So, Tal, anything else that you wanted to cover for tonight before we sign off?
Nope, that was it.
Okay. Well, again, chat, I apologize. Chat and anybody listening to this afterwards, I do apologize if I started to kind of ramble there at the beginning of the section on the NPD numbers. But that is going to do it for us. If you want to catch up with us, we are normally on at 8:45 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday nights. That's when you can swing by if you want to participate in and watch the live show, as Awana has been doing with us this evening. And then otherwise, when I post it, totally random right throughout the week, I do the best that I can. But sometimes I have this loose rule that it has to be posted no later than Wednesday night. But the only thing I can really say at this point is just check the front page of the podcast to see if the new episode has been posted. If you want to kind of watch it after the fact as a VOD, If you want to listen to the show in audio format, we post the show over on SoundCloud and on Pocket Cast, so you can catch the show there. We will be back next week as regularly scheduled when Towmaster will be the host. So again, you guys are welcome to join in then. And Wara mentions it's 2 p.m. Monday for me. Yeah, so you're in the future, Wara. I get you. Where you're overseas, and we appreciate you. I think that is it. If you want to catch up with me, I'm doing a new podcast, just a solo cast on Tuesday nights. We're going to try and settle in on 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time over on the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube. And it's going to be a podcast where I really dive deep into like current stories in terms of the financial, the technical, and the historical issues behind some of those news stories. So, if you pick any news story that's in the current news cycle off the tree, my objective during this show is to take that and kind of break it down and decompose it into like 10 parts, and really swim through some of the heavier, meatier details that mostly you won't find right on other gaming kind of websites. So for people who are interested in that, again, on Rounding Off Infinity, on the Rounding Off Infinity gaming channel on YouTube on Tuesday nights, we're going to start at 7:30 p.m. and hope I can stick to that, but we may have to slide that time around depending on my work schedule. So until next time, take care of yourselves, stay safe out there, play the games that you like, come here to talk to us about the games that you love. Once again, my name has been Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast, as well as the Basement Radio Arcade podcast, and now host of Talking About Games. Here with me, I've had Towmaster99. We really appreciate you guys joining in. For anybody out there who wants to watch the VOD of this, please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can just receive a notification whenever we post new content. Like I said, we'll be back next Sunday. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.